In those odd, quiet moments shared between conversations, an uncomfortable awareness can sneak up on us. It's that fleeting realization that being around others can often feel like trudging through mud rather than floating on a cloud. It isn't an outright distaste for humanity. Rather, it's the heaviness that company can bring. Emotions swell and crash like waves. You might find yourself hesitating at the threshold of a bustling room, thinking, do I really want to do this? The struggle is real. It's not about being antisocial. It's about how society crafts these intricate roles we all have to perform. The familiarity of discomfort creeps in. There's an unspoken rule that says, put on a happy face. But why? Why should we always play the part? For some, the emotional calculus of social interactions becomes nothing short of a math nightmare. We find ourselves adjusting our authenticity, choosing words carefully, and crafting expressions like puppets. Exhausting, right? Hey everyone, welcome to Psychologist G, a quiet corner of the internet for overthinkers, silent observers, and those who notice the tension in a room long before anyone else admits it. If you've ever wondered why some people seem fueled by dislike, resentment, or the urge to tear others down, you're not alone. Tonight, we're exploring the psychology of people who hate others, not to judge them, and not to excuse harm, but to understand what's really happening beneath the surface. If this resonates, like the video, share it with someone who thinks deeply and leave a comment below. Do you see hatred as weakness, fear, or something else entirely, and where are you listening from? Consider those who seem standoffish but are secretly observing the world like the most astute spies. They carry a sensitivity that can be overwhelming. They notice everything, from someone's eye twitch to the energy shifts in the room. It's a high-stakes game of emotional poker. With minds tuned into a cacophony of signals, it feels like being bombarded by 100 TV screens playing wildly incoherent channels. This sensitivity isn't a flaw, it's simply a different way of processing life, a nuanced perspective some don't get to see. Enter emotional overstimulation, a concept that explains why some people need a bit of space. It's like turning down the volume on life's loudspeaker because too much outside noise stirs chaos internally. Withdrawal doesn't mean disdain. Rather, it's a form of self-care, a tactic to preserve their sanity. They cherish their own inner peace so much they protect it like it's a rare gem. Too much input? No thanks. Yet, there's another route to this distance, often mingling with past experiences. Moments of confusion or disappointment can shape someone's relationship with others subtly. It's not always blatant betrayal, but small, cumulative moments. Sometimes people say one thing with their mouths but mean something completely different with their hearts. As disappointment trickled in, distancing became the refuge they never knew they needed. It's a buffer zone, a safe bubble to breathe without feeling pressured, monitored, or judged. Society doesn't make things easier either. The constant expectations to be cheerful, accommodating, and perpetually available can feel suffocating. Who said we should be endlessly approachable, like some kind of social vending machine ready to dispense smiles and small talk? The reality is that sometimes, taking a step back can actually bring clarity. Embracing moments of solitude is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength, a bold declaration of personal boundaries to reclaim one's peace amidst all the chaos. Some folks find the expectation of casual chit-chat to be about as comfortable as a pair of one-size-fits-all shoes just doesn't fit right. They're not wired to buzz with energy from superficial exchanges. Nope. These deep thinkers crave meaningful conversations that aren't just obligatory word salad. They'd rather be left alone in their thoughts than suffer through shallow banter. Not because they dislike humanity, but because they value authenticity like it's a rare collector's item. This leads to a fascinating twist in the tale of human interaction. You'd think the introverts sipping their lattes in solitude don't want connection, but plot twist, they're often pining for it. It's just a different flavor they're after. They long for discussions that can stand the test of silence, being able to drop all pretenses and enjoying affection without feeling like they're on a stage. Unfortunately, this kind of fulfilling interaction doesn't grow on trees, so they sometimes opt for some quality alone time while they search for those special people who get it. Then we dive into something called protective detachment, which sounds like a superhero power but isn't quite as glamorous. When past experiences have taught someone that being vulnerable can lead to meltdowns, they throw up a shield, not a wall of anger, but a flexible barrier of caution. They navigate life with the stealth of a ninja, quietly assessing every social situation like it's a top-secret mission. If the vibe feels off, they're out faster than you can say awkward silence, making a habit out of retreating to their comfort zone. And here's the kicker. These individuals often boast a vivid inner world. Their imaginations are like an all-you-can-eat buffet brimming with ideas, reflections, and possibilities. While their outer world vibe might say, "I'm not interested," inside, they're riding a roller coaster of thoughts and creativity. So when someone tries to yank them from their cozy mental nook, it's akin to being interrupted mid-daydream. It feels more disruptive than inviting. Let's get real for a moment. Solitude can be a sanctuary for those who've learned that misunderstanding can hurt more than loneliness. Their perceptions of the world often bring a heightened sensitivity to social cues, making them easy targets for misinterpretation. Their quiet disposition can come off as indifference, while their calmness might signal boredom. But the truth? They often care deeply. They just don't wave their emotion flags around like banners in a parade. What's more, these enduringly thoughtful souls don't aim to dwell in an everlasting state of distance. They crave closeness, but it comes with a twist. They demand a version of intimacy that won't drain them dry. They seek connections that let them thrive in their natural skin without constantly shifting gears. Silence doesn't indicate discomfort to them. It's simply a cozy blanket they wrap around themselves in the presence of someone who understands. This journey into understanding reveals that freedom, oh glorious freedom, is what people with this mindset yearn for above all else. The liberty to express, to feel, and to think without the pressure of performance art is the ultimate goal. As it turns out, it's not always about bad past experiences steering clear of the crowd. Sometimes, it's just a case of being wired to appreciate stillness and self-reflection. Solitude can be their fertile ground for creativity, where they recharge and refine their unique perspectives, baking up brilliance in the quiet. For many, socializing feels like wandering through a bustling marketplace, exhilarating. But good luck finding a cozy corner to settle down. It's fascinating how different folks respond to sensory overload. You have the social butterflies flitting about in the noise, energizing others with their gusto. Meanwhile, there are those who find themselves on the brink of sensory chaos after just a few interactions. They crave that peaceful ambience like you seek a warm blanket on a chilly night. And let's not forget the peculiar tendency some have to declare, "I dislike people." It's a catchphrase for many, yet isn't it a bit clumsy? Rather than taking a deep dive into their experiences and feelings, it's easier to throw up a dismissive wall. It's as though they'd rather blame the entire species than unravel the intricate web of emotions that comes with connecting with others. Highlighting the struggle is much heavier than simply stating an aversion. Yet here's a quirky twist in the midst of their reticence. These people dislikers often have the most tender hearts. Their compassion isn't loud or boisterous. It's more like a whisper that urges them to notice subtle injustices and miscommunications. They see colors in emotions most remain blissfully unaware of. It's not that their hearts are shut off. They're just cautious about unleashing their depth in a world full of noise. This self-awareness adds another layer to their charm. Instead of living life on autopilot, they navigate their emotional landscape like experienced hikers, pondering every path and potential pitfall. This introspection can feel heavy at times. They process or overprocess their feelings, leading them to hesitate before barreling into social situations. The push and pull between wanting to connect and craving solitude is an internal seesaw they straddle. Interestingly, many of these folks harbor an appreciation for humanity that rivals the most enthusiastic socialites. They adore the stories, artistry, and resilience of humans. Peeking through the lens of a curious observer, they revel in deciphering the complexities of people without necessarily engaging in the messiness of personal interactions. The love is there, a love for the concept of connection without the burdens that often accompany it. When it comes time to foster genuine relationships, they don't wade into the shallow end. Oh no, they wade in deliberately, filtering through the noise to find those who radiate authenticity, real ones who make their hearts feel safe. Their small social circles are not about disdain. Rather, it's about valuing deep, meaningful interactions where energy flows both ways instead of draining one another. What's truly enchanting about people who often shun others is their capacity to listen and empathize intensely. When they let someone in, their quietude transforms into undivided attention. It's a connection that speaks volumes despite the lack of crowd noise. Yet, before they reach that level of trust, they wrestle silently with their own internal dilemmas, longing for connection while wanting protective solitude. In this delicate dance of life, they hold out hope for that turning point, that enlightening moment where a conversation feels effortless and closeness doesn't equate to exhaustion. They dream of finding those rare souls who refresh rather than deplete, offering clarity instead of confusion. It's that beam of hope that eases their heart, reminding them not all interactions are burdensome. Some can be genuinely liberating. Inside the hearts of those who seem to dislike people lies a rich tapestry of emotions, woven from years of experience. It's not that they feel nothing. It's that they feel everything, sometimes too intensely. Disliking others can serve as a protective mechanism, shielding their sensitive inner selves from potential hurt. The more they care, the more they fear others misunderstanding them. That's where the distance comes in, not a wall, but a carefully constructed barrier, lovingly built to guard their emotional sanctuaries. As nightly thoughts creep in, these individuals find themselves pondering their solitary existence. It's a strange paradox that being alone feels cozy, while being around others exhausts them. Small talk, the social lubricant of gatherings, becomes a grueling task. They often ask themselves why the chatter feels more like a chore than a delight. Why can't they simply breeze through the friendly banter? This self-reflection emerges in the stillness of the night, nudging them to confront the narratives they've tucked away. Every person carries a story, and these tales define their connections or lack thereof. For some, baring their souls has led to misunderstanding, while others have experienced their needs falling on deaf ears. Criticism for their quirks or punishment for candidness has left lasting scars. Thus, instead of forming bonds, they learn to navigate their feelings like fragile glass, beautiful yet easily shattered, leaving them avoiding situations that might bring further discomfort. But wait, there's more to this puzzle. Some folks aren't antisocial. They simply require more profound connections than what is typically offered. They don't thrive in bustling crowds or noisy atmospheres where authenticity is traded for performance. These sensitive souls seek genuine interactions, spaces where they can exist authentically without pretense. Much like someone with specific dietary needs, they turn away from social encounters that feel like unhealthy meals, not out of disdain but because they just don't sit well with them. Within this world of intense introspection lies an inner monologue that never quiets. These deep thinkers dissect emotions and analyze every little nuance of human interaction like amateur detectives on a case. It's a double-edged sword. While this perceptiveness allows them to produce insights others may miss, it also burdens them. The mental gymnastics required to navigate social situations leaves them drained, as they meticulously observe and interpret each flicker of emotion and unspoken word. When faced with potential social interactions, they engage in what psychologists term anticipatory regulation. They mentally prepare for conversations, running simulations of potential dialogues in their minds before they even utter a word. This intricate rehearsal demands vast energy, akin to training for a marathon before they even arrive at the starting line. They're exhausted. This anticipation turns socializing into a laborious task instead of a joyful experience, making them seem standoffish when really, they're just strategizing survival. While their inner dilemmas remain mostly hidden, it's important to know these folks are not lost cases. Somewhere beneath the layers of their protective barriers lies an astounding capacity for connection, yearning to be tapped. If only others could peel back the layers and unlock the door to their emotional world, they'd discover the vibrant, complex beings waiting patiently behind their self-imposed barricades, eager for that rare, meaningful interaction that makes it all worthwhile. Some people are on a quest for the ultimate chill zone, where they don't have to act out their emotions like a bad play. They crave relationships that flow without a script, where silence is seen as a cozy blanket rather than an awkward gap. These folks aren't signing up for a lifetime of solitude. They just want to keep it low-key while still savoring closeness. And deep down, they've cultivated a resilience that makes them pretty darn good company for themselves. Over time, they've mastered the art of self-care without seeking constant applause. They've become the best friend they never knew they needed, relishing their own thoughts and crafting an inner world where they feel seen and heard. Like skilled architects, they design their mental space to prioritize their well-being. For this reason, any connection they decide to open the door to better be worth the effort, requiring real meaning to invade their personal sanctuary. People often misconstrue their disdain for socializing as a personal affront. In reality, it's not you, it's the chaos that comes with social settings. Emotional roller coasters? No thanks. They thrive on depth and consistency, looking for cues rather than guesswork. They may avoid the typical social dance because it forces them to contort into versions of themselves that don't fit. Ironically, those who don't push or expect anything in return become their favorite dance partners, helping them shine by just being present. With the right crew, their walls start melting away. They reveal their witty jokes, sharp insights, and heartfelt vulnerabilities, flourishing in an atmosphere that doesn't suck the energy out of them. But getting to this magical place is a long and winding road, one where patience is a must. Many are so deeply entrenched in self-sufficiency that they forget trust takes time to marinate. It's not about fireworks but slow, simmering warmth that makes you feel truly safe. What's fascinating is how these emotionally insightful individuals often operate on ancient emotional blueprints forged in the fires of past mishaps. Maybe they learned to be quiet to dodge drama or began withdrawing after being mocked for just being themselves. These survival mechanisms can feel protective but often create barriers that keep authentic connections at bay. At some point, it's essential to sift through these rules and decide which ones still belong in their emotional toolbox. Irony of ironies, though, is that these described individuals are not antisocial at all. It's more nuanced than that. When the conditions are just right, they're gregariously social, showcasing loyalty and sincerity. Their emotional safety radar is finely tuned, and when they finally find those who appreciate this depth, they blossom into fiercely loyal, emotionally generous friends. But until they feel that coziness, they tiptoe through emotional limbo, searching for sincere connections instead of flash-in-the-pan encounters. And then there's the poetic nature of these deep souls. They connect with emotions on a level most folks skip, finding hidden beauty in silence and the sweet taste of solitude. They observe the world like art critics before forming any judgments, taking their time to process feelings. While the loud, vibrant world often gets the spotlight, these quiet thinkers thrive beneath the surface, feeling every moment in rich detail and savoring each experience like fine wine. Navigating the whirlwind of social interactions can feel like juggling flaming swords for those who process emotions at a leisurely pace. Imagine a painter being asked to whip up a masterpiece in a mere 5 minutes. Sure, it's conceivable, but it totally clashes with their vibe. Just like everyone has their own groove, people also have distinct emotional tempos. While some thrive in rapid-fire conversations, others require a slow simmer to truly resonate. When pushed to quicken their emotional pace, they can feel out of sync and overwhelmed. Interestingly, the emotional landscape of those who move at a snail's pace isn't all about disliking others. More often than not, it's about an unyielding sensitivity to emotions that tends to fly under the radar. Empathy, for them, isn't flamboyant. It's like a soft whisper instead of a loud shout. They absorb feelings from others as if they were their very own, and this emotional energy can drain them faster than a gusty wind toppling a sandcastle. It's not people they push away, it's the tidal wave of emotions that can drown them. In a bid to protect their delicate emotional resources, these individuals might establish boundaries that come off as cold distance. This isn't rejection, it's more like a survival tactic. The irony is that while they work to safeguard their inner world, they often end up misinterpreted. Others see them as indifferent or aloof, when in reality, they're swimming in emotional excess. They feel so deeply, yet they struggle to express it, leading to a misunderstanding of their silent waters. The silence these gentle spirits carry is anything but empty. It's packed fact full of contemplation and depth. Their quietness isn't a lack of ideas or thoughts, but merely an avoidance of unnecessary noise. Their space isn't a declaration of disinterest, but rather a warm hug to their own soul. Despite this, an unspoken hope lingers in their heart, a hope for connections that provide solace rather than pressure, filled with warmth rather than obligation. These souls dream of finding someone who understands that their silence is a representation of trust and their distance, a shield of self-protection. They long for a companionship that respects the careful nature of their hearts, easing them like a gentle breeze rather than a fierce gale. Imagine someone who knocks softly on that emotional fort, allowing the walls to lower naturally without the rush. Someone who honors the deliberate pace of their opening up. When the right person finally strolls into their life, a magical shift occurs. The buzzing world seems a tad quieter. Conversations morph into gentle exchanges, and the emotional burdens lighten. Laughter bubbles up more freely, hearts speak more openly, and the guarded inner world becomes a canvas shared with this safe companion. It's a beautiful confluence of understanding. People who initially claimed a disdain for humanity find themselves at peace, welcoming the right kind of connection instead. It's essential to understand that these individuals aren't standoffish. They are simply navigating a world that often moves way too fast for their liking. They crave simple acknowledgement that overlooks their distance, striking them as thoughtful, sensitive, and earnest souls wrestling through the chaos of society. Ultimately, those who seem to shy away from others do so not out of disdain but from the hope of blossoming in the right company, where they can feel understood without the need for elaboration or performance. And when they find that special someone who makes connection feel like a soft, steady embrace, that's when the real magic begins. They realize that their supposed dislike of people was merely a longing for the right people. Once they encounter the warmth of genuine connection, their hearts open wider than they ever thought possible, and the world transforms into a tapestry of delight